Welcome to the channel, where today we dive into the high-octane world of political intrigue and buddy action mayhem with the 2025 release, Heads of State. This action comedy thriller, directed by Ilya Naishuller, best known for his kinetic visual style in films like Nobody, brings together an unlikely duo in a globe-trotting adventure that blends espionage, satire, and explosive set pieces. The screenplay, penned by Josh Appelbaum, André Nemec, and Harrison Query, balances sharp dialogue with a fast-paced narrative that doesn't shy away from poking fun at geopolitical absurdities. Set against the backdrop of a fractured international alliance, the film stars Idris Elba as the British Prime Minister and John Cena as the newly elected U.S. President, both forced into an uneasy partnership when a global conspiracy threatens to unravel NATO. With Priyanka Chopra Jonas joining the cast as a formidable MI6 agent, the film has drawn attention not only for its star power but also for its timely commentary on diplomacy, leadership, and media spectacle. Released via Prime Video, Heads of State has quickly become a talking point for its genre-blending ambition and the chemistry between its leads, positioning itself as a standout in the modern action comedy landscape. The production of Heads of State began as a high-concept action comedy project developed by Amazon Studios, with early buzz generated in October 2020 when it was announced that Idris Elba and John Cena would headline the film. Their prior collaboration in The Suicide Squad 2021 laid the groundwork for their dynamic pairing, which became a central draw for the film's development. The screenplay was crafted by Josh Appelbaum, André Nemec, and Harrison Query, with Query also credited for the original story. The producing team included Peter Safran and John Rickard, with Elba and Cena also serving as executive producers, further underscoring their creative investment in the project. In October 2022, Ilya Naishuller was brought on board as director. Known for his stylized, kinetic approach in Hardcore Henry and Nobody, Naishuller reoriented the film's tone from a straightforward action thriller to a buddy action comedy with satirical undertones. He envisioned the film as a modern homage to 1980s and 1990s buddy films, infusing it with physical comedy, character-driven action, and a self-aware sensibility. His meticulous approach included storyboarding the film extensively, reportedly reworking the Air Force One sequence over 10 times to strike the right balance between spectacle and character vulnerability. Casting choices reflected a deliberate effort to blend star power with comedic and dramatic range. Priyanka Chopra Jonas joined in April 2023 as MI6 agent Noel Bisset, bringing both action credibility and emotional depth. The ensemble was rounded out by Paddy Considine, Carla Gugino, Jack Quaid, Stephen Root, and Sarah Niles, each contributing to the film's tonal versatility. Notably, Quaid's character, Marty Comer, was originally intended as a one-off, but his post-credits return hints at potential franchise ambitions. Filming commenced in London in May 2023 and spanned multiple international locations, including Liverpool, Trieste, Nice, and Belgrade. These diverse backdrops were chosen to reflect the film's globe-trotting narrative and to enhance its visual authenticity. One standout behind-the-scenes anecdote involves the recreation of Spain's Tomatina festival in the French village of Sospel, where visual effects and prop jelly were used in place of real tomatoes, an example of the production's inventive problem-solving. Ultimately, Naishuller's vision shaped Heads of State into a genre-blending spectacle that balances absurdity with grounded character arcs, leveraging its cast's chemistry and international scope to deliver a politically charged, action-packed comedy with global appeal. Heads of State began its journey as a concept meant to blend the sleek tension of international spy films with the chaotic fun of buddy comedies. The project was first picked up by Amazon MGM Studios, which saw the potential for a big-budget action film with global appeal. From early development, the idea was to pair two distinct yet complementary leads. Enter Idris Elba and John Cena. Their casting was a strategic move not only for their contrasting on-screen personas but also for their international fan bases and proven ability to carry both action-heavy and comedic roles. Director Ilya Naishuller, chosen for his kinetic style and knack for stylized violence as seen in Hardcore Henry and Nobody, brought a distinctive edge to the project. Naishuller envisioned Heads of State as more than just an action film. He wanted to create a genre-bending experience that balanced stunts and satire. He worked closely with the writers to shape a tone that could shift fluidly from intense sequences to absurdly funny moments without losing narrative cohesion. The production was a logistical challenge, involving multiple international locations, large-scale action setups, and tightly choreographed stunts. Elba and Cena underwent extensive training not just for the physical demands, but also to nail the timing and rhythm of their comic interplay. Behind the scenes, the cast and crew embraced a spirit of collaboration, with improvisation often encouraged to capture spontaneous chemistry. One of the most talked about elements during production was the effort to keep practical effects at the forefront, minimizing CGI where possible. This choice gave the film a grounded texture despite its larger-than-life premise. From concept to execution, Heads of State was shaped by a vision to deliver a cinematic experience that is as thrilling as it is hilarious, and that vision is deeply embedded in every frame. Set in a world where diplomacy is as volatile as the battlefield, Heads of State opens with a high-stakes international crisis that forces two of the world's most powerful leaders into an uneasy alliance. The newly elected U.S. President Will Derringer, a former action movie star with more charisma than political experience, arrives in London for a ceremonial visit with British Prime Minister Sam Clarke, a disciplined ex-military officer with little patience for theatrics. Their public personas clash immediately, and their mutual disdain becomes a media spectacle. But when a catastrophic attack derails their diplomatic itinerary, the two leaders are thrust into a globe-spanning conspiracy that threatens to destabilize the NATO alliance. With their respective security teams compromised and their governments believing them dead, Derringer and Clarke must rely on each other to survive and uncover the truth behind the attack. Along the way, they're joined by MI6 agent Noel Bisset, whose personal history with Clarke adds emotional complexity to the mission. The film's tone is a kinetic blend of action, satire, and buddy comedy, balancing explosive set pieces with sharp political commentary and character-driven humor. What sets Heads of State apart is its genre fusion. It's part espionage thriller, part road movie, and part political farce. The narrative cleverly subverts expectations by placing two ideologically opposed leaders in increasingly absurd and dangerous situations, forcing them to confront not only external threats but their own egos and assumptions. Without revealing key twists, the story's momentum is driven by a series of betrayals, shifting alliances, and a ticking clock scenario that keeps the stakes high. At the center of Heads of State are two contrasting protagonists whose clashing personalities fuel the film's energy, humor, and emotional beats. Idris Elba plays a hardened, no-nonsense elite operative named Marshall, a man shaped by a lifetime of precision, discipline, and distrust. He's motivated by duty and a deep commitment to protecting global order, but beneath his stoic exterior lies a character scarred by past betrayals and personal losses. Elba brings his trademark gravitas and intensity to the role, anchoring the film's more chaotic elements with a commanding presence and subtle emotional undercurrents. Opposite him is John Cena's character, Tom Ryder, a former action star turned unintentional operative, who finds himself pulled into a high-stakes mission far beyond his understanding. Ryder is brash, impulsive, and often out of his depth, but he's driven by an earnest desire to prove himself. Cena infuses the character with comedic timing and self-awareness, balancing slapstick humor with moments of genuine vulnerability. His arc is one of reluctant growth, transforming from a clueless bystander into a surprisingly competent and selfless partner. As the story unfolds, both characters undergo significant development. Marshall learns to loosen his grip on control and begins to trust someone again, while Ryder gradually discovers a sense of purpose beyond fame and self-image. Their relationship evolves from mutual annoyance to genuine camaraderie, and this dynamic forms the emotional backbone of the film. The chemistry between Elba and Cena adds depth to the characters' growth, with their performances elevating what could have been standard archetypes into layered, believable figures. Through tension, humor, and eventual respect, Heads of State uses its protagonists not just to drive the plot, but to explore themes of trust, redemption, and unlikely partnership in a world where appearances often deceive. In Heads of State, the central trio of characters, Will Derringer, Sam Clarke and Noel Bisset, anchor the film's tonal balance between satire, action and emotional resonance. Each character is crafted with distinct motivations and internal conflicts, allowing the actors to explore layered performances beneath the film's comedic surface. Will Derringer, John Cena. Will Derringer is the newly elected President of the United States, a former action movie star whose charisma and populist appeal propelled him into office. His motivation stems from a desire to prove he's more than a media creation, that he can lead with substance, not just spectacle. Initially portrayed as brash, impulsive and image-conscious, Derringer's arc is one of humility and growth. As the narrative unfolds, he confronts the limitations of his bravado and begins to understand the weight of real leadership. Cena brings a self-aware charm to the role, leaning into his own public persona while subtly undercutting it. His comedic timing is sharp, but it's in the quieter moments, when Derringer grapples with betrayal or questions his own legitimacy, that Cena reveals surprising emotional depth. Sam Clarke, Idris Elba. Sam Clarke, the British Prime Minister, is a disciplined ex-SAS operative turned politician. His motivations are rooted in duty, national pride, and a deep-seated belief in order and protocol. Clarke begins the film as a stoic, no-nonsense figure who views Derringer as a walking liability. However, his arc reveals a man burdened by past compromises and personal regrets, particularly his unresolved relationship with Noel Bisset. Elba's performance is grounded and nuanced. He plays Clarke with a simmering intensity that gradually softens as the character learns to trust, adapt, and even laugh. The contrast between Clarke's rigidity and Derringer's flamboyance fuels much of the film's tension and humor, but Elba ensures Clarke never becomes a caricature. His evolution from lone wolf to reluctant partner adds gravitas to the film's emotional core. Noel Bisset, Priyanka Chopra Jonas. Noel Bisset is a senior MI6 agent tasked with protecting both leaders after the assassination attempt. Her motivations are complex: loyalty to her agency, a personal vendetta against the antagonist Viktor Gradov, and unresolved feelings for Clarke. Bisset serves as the film's moral compass and emotional anchor, often mediating between the clashing egos of Derringer and Clarke. Chopra Jonas imbues the character with intelligence, strength, and vulnerability. Her action sequences are executed with precision, but it's her quieter scenes, particularly those exploring her past with Clarke, that lend the film emotional texture. Bisset's arc is one of reconciliation, with her past, her ideals, and her role in a world where trust is a rare commodity. Together, these characters form a dynamic triad that elevates Heads of State beyond its genre trappings. Their individual journeys, marked by ego, redemption, and reluctant camaraderie, are what give the film its heart beneath the spectacle. The supporting cast of Heads of State plays a crucial role in enriching the film's world, enhancing both the emotional stakes and the comedic tone, while also pushing the protagonist toward transformation. Each secondary character brings a specific flavor to the narrative, offering contrast, conflict, or unexpected support. One standout is the character played by Priyanka Chopra Jonas, who portrays Zara, a sharp intelligence strategist with her own hidden agenda. Zara operates in the moral gray area of espionage, often clashing with Marshall's rigid ethics and challenging Ryder's naivete. Her presence forces the leads to reconsider their assumptions about loyalty and manipulation. Chopra Jonas delivers a performance that is both poised and unpredictable, adding intrigue and subtle tension to the story. Another notable addition is the quirky tech specialist played by Paddy Considine, who provides both comic relief and critical assistance in key moments. Though eccentric and socially awkward, his expertise becomes indispensable, and he subtly mirrors Ryder's arc, initially underestimated but ultimately vital to the mission. His dynamic with Cena provides some of the film's most memorable comedic exchanges. Additionally, the main antagonist, a cold, calculating arms broker portrayed by Carla Gugino, adds a layer of intellectual menace to the film. Her character isn't just a villain for spectacle. She embodies the film's deeper theme of blurred moral lines and global politics. Gugino's composed, chilling performance provides a perfect foil to the chaos of the protagonists, grounding the stakes in a real-world sense of danger. Each of these supporting characters not only drives the plot forward but also contributes to the development of the main duo. Through opposition, alliance, or betrayal, they sharpen the themes of trust, ego, and transformation. Their interactions help to balance the tone of the film, offering wit, suspense, and moments of unexpected heart, and collectively they make the journey feel full, lived in, and meaningful. In Heads of State, the supporting cast plays a crucial role in enriching the narrative, reinforcing its themes of trust, betrayal, and reluctant camaraderie. These characters are not merely functional, they provide tonal contrast, narrative propulsion, and emotional texture that elevate the film beyond its central trio. Viktor Gradov, Paddy Considine. As the film's primary antagonist, Gradov is more than a stock villain. His motivations, rooted in personal loss and geopolitical disillusionment, mirror the film's critique of unchecked power and institutional hypocrisy. Considine delivers a performance that is both chilling and grounded, portraying Gradov as a man driven by grief and vengeance rather than cartoonish evil. His presence forces the protagonist to confront the consequences of their nation's past actions, adding moral ambiguity to the otherwise clear-cut hero-villain dynamic. Elizabeth Kirk, Carla Gugino. The U.S. Vice President, Kirk initially appears as a stabilizing force in Derringer's absence but is later revealed to be a key conspirator. Her betrayal underscores the film's recurring theme of internal corruption and the fragility of alliances. Gugino's performance is restrained yet calculating, making her eventual reveal all the more impactful. She represents the institutional rot that the protagonists must overcome, not just physically but ideologically. Arthur Hammond, Stephen Root. Hammond, a brilliant hacker coerced into working for Gradov, serves as a tragic figure caught between genius and guilt. His arc, culminating in a redemptive act, adds emotional weight to the narrative. Root's portrayal is understated but poignant, offering a glimpse into the collateral damage of global espionage. His scenes with Bisset and Clarke humanize the stakes and reinforce the cost of betrayal. Marty Comer, Jack Quaid. Comer provides comic relief and unexpected heroism as a CIA field agent stationed in Warsaw. Initially portrayed as overeager and inexperienced, he surprises both the characters and the audience with his competence and bravery. His dynamic with Derringer and Clarke injects levity into tense moments, and his survival in the post-credits scene hints at a larger role in potential sequels. Quaid's performance is a standout for its blend of humor, sincerity, and physicality. Simone Bradshaw and Quincy Harrington, Sarah Niles and Richard Coyle. As the respective chiefs of staff to Derringer and Clarke, Bradshaw and Harrington embody the bureaucratic machinery behind the leaders. Their interactions reflect the cultural and political differences between the US and UK, often serving as a satirical mirror to the protagonist's own conflicts. While their screen time is limited, both actors bring nuance to roles that could have easily been one-dimensional. Sasha and Olga the Killers, Alexander Kuznetsov and Katrina Durden. These assassins are stylized extensions of Gradov's reach, functioning as physical manifestations of the protagonist's external threats. Their choreography and presence add kinetic energy to the action sequences, and their relentless pursuit heightens the film's urgency. Olga's accidental demise during a chase sequence is both darkly comedic and emblematic of the film's tonal balancing act. Collectively, these secondary characters deepen the film's world-building and thematic resonance. They challenge, support, and reflect the protagonists, ensuring that Heads of State remains a layered and engaging narrative rather than a two-man showcase. The acting in Heads of State stands out as one of the film's strongest elements, driven by a committed cast that balances action, humor, and emotional nuance. Idris Elba and John Cena deliver performances that are both engaging and complementary, with their contrasting energies creating the perfect foundation for the film's dynamic rhythm. Elba's calm intensity pairs seamlessly with Cena's chaotic charm, and their evolving chemistry becomes not only believable but central to the film's narrative success. Elba excels in bringing depth to his character Marshall. His ability to express internal conflict with minimal dialogue adds weight to scenes where restraint matters more than bravado. He captures the hardened professional with layers of past pain and suppressed emotion, particularly in moments where trust is tested or when his character reveals subtle vulnerability. Cena, on the other hand, leans confidently into his role as the comic relief with heart. He brings surprising nuance to a character that could easily have been reduced to slapstick. His delivery is sharp, his timing precise, and he proves especially strong in scenes where his character must rise above expectations. The chemistry between the two leads grows convincingly throughout the film. Early scenes bristle with tension and mutual annoyance, but as the story progresses, so does their bond, culminating in a few well-earned emotional beats that feel authentic rather than forced. A standout moment involves a late-night conversation where Marshall opens up about a past betrayal while Ryder, for once, listens without a joke. The subtle shifts in their facial expressions and body language reflect a mutual recognition and respect that carries into the final act. Among the supporting cast, Priyanka Chopra Jonas brings a polished, calculated energy to her role. Her scenes with Elba carry a simmering tension, both intellectual and emotional, while her interactions with Cena are marked by dry wit and carefully measured disdain that gradually softens. Carla Gugino is equally compelling as the antagonist, exuding calm menace with every line. Her restrained but powerful performance elevates the threat level without ever tipping into cartoonish villainy. If there is a minor weakness in the performances, it lies in some of the film's tertiary characters, who occasionally lean too heavily into cliché. A few side roles lack the same dimensionality seen in the core ensemble, and their comedic beats occasionally feel forced or predictable. Still, Heads of State succeeds overall due to its well-matched cast and the way they feed off one another. The film's emotional highs and comedic lows work because the performances sell them honestly, with a shared rhythm that keeps the audience invested. The cast chemistry transforms a high-concept plot into a character-driven adventure with heart, humor, and memorable moments. The acting in Heads of State thrives on its ensemble's ability to balance absurdity with sincerity, delivering performances that are both entertaining and, at times, unexpectedly poignant. The film's tonal tightrope, oscillating between satire, action, and emotional drama, demands a cast that can pivot seamlessly, and for the most part it succeeds. John Cena's portrayal of President Will Derringer is a standout in terms of comedic timing and self-parody. He leans into his action hero persona with a knowing wink, but what elevates his performance is the vulnerability he injects into moments of doubt and disillusionment. His arc from swaggering celebrity politician to a man grappling with the weight of leadership is played with surprising nuance. Cena's physicality is expectedly strong, but it's his restraint in quieter scenes, particularly his confrontation with Vice President Kirk, that reveals his growth as a performer. Idris Elba, as Prime Minister Sam Clarke, brings gravitas and emotional depth to a role that could have easily been one note. His stoicism is layered with subtle emotional cues, especially in scenes involving Noel Bisset. Elba's ability to convey internal conflict without overt exposition adds credibility to Clarke's transformation from rigid statesman to empathetic ally. His chemistry with Cena is the film's backbone. Their banter is sharp, their tension believable, and their eventual camaraderie earned. The fish and chips reconciliation scene, while simple, is one of the film's most emotionally resonant moments, underscoring their hard-won mutual respect. Priyanka Chopra Jonas delivers a performance that is both commanding and emotionally grounded. As Noel Bisset, she navigates the dual demands of action and emotional complexity with finesse. Her scenes with Elba are particularly effective, hinting at a shared history without overplaying it. One of the film's most affecting moments is her quiet breakdown after the failed Spain operation, where she mourns her fallen team, not with melodrama, but with a controlled intensity that lingers. Among the supporting cast, Jack Quaid's Marty Comer is a comedic revelation. His blend of awkward enthusiasm and unexpected competence adds levity without undercutting the stakes. The post-credits reveal of his survival, while played for laughs, also reinforces the film's theme of underestimated resilience. Carla Gugino's Vice President Kirk is chilling in her composure, and her final monologue, delivered with icy conviction before her abrupt demise, adds a layer of ideological menace that lingers beyond the film's runtime. If there's a weakness, it lies in the occasional tonal inconsistency. Some emotional beats, such as Clarke's near-death moment in Croatia, are undercut by rapid shifts back to humor. While this is in keeping with the film's genre-blending ambition, it occasionally blunts the impact of otherwise strong performances. Overall, Heads of State benefits from a cast that understands the assignment: to entertain, yes, but also to humanize archetypes. The chemistry between Cena, Elba, and Chopra Jonas is palpable, and their performances anchor a film that might otherwise have been overwhelmed by its own spectacle. Director Ilya Naishuller's signature style is on full display in Heads of State, blending high-octane action with slick visual storytelling and an irreverent tone that walks a fine line between grounded tension and over-the-top fun. Known for his kinetic direction in films like Hardcore Henry and Nobody, Naishuller brings a sharp eye for choreography and a strong command of visual rhythm to this project, crafting a film that feels fast-paced yet controlled, chaotic yet purposeful. His use of framing is precise and intentional. Action scenes are shot with a dynamic, almost immersive energy, often employing wide angles and fluid camera movement to capture the scale and complexity of the stunts while still keeping the focus on character interaction. Close-ups are reserved for emotional clarity, allowing actors' expressions to carry weight in moments of silence or conflict. These choices help maintain a sense of intimacy within the film's grand spectacle. Pacing is one of Naishuller's strengths, and it's expertly handled here. The film rarely lingers too long in one mood. Action sequences are tight and explosive, while dialogue-driven scenes are brisk but meaningful. Transitions between comedic banter and serious revelations are seamless, a testament to Naishuller's ability to modulate tone without undermining the narrative's momentum. He understands when to pull back for a quiet exchange and when to launch the audience into a full-throttle chase or shootout. Tonally, Heads of State embodies Naishuller's fondness for balancing brutality with wit. While the stakes are high and the action visceral, the humor never feels out of place. That balance echoes his work in Nobody, where violence and humor were similarly intertwined. Here, though, he leans further into character-driven comedy, allowing the film's emotional beats and relationships to evolve more naturally amid the chaos. Naishuller also continues his pattern of subverting expectations, turning archetypes on their heads and injecting genre conventions with a dose of self-awareness. Rather than simply follow the buddy cop formula, he reshapes it through character dynamics that evolve gradually and realistically. His background in music and editing is evident in the film's rhythm. Scenes often cut to the beat, with sound design and soundtrack choices accentuating mood shifts and emphasizing action without overwhelming the viewer. Ultimately, Heads of State feels distinctly like a Naishuller film, visually aggressive, stylistically bold, and infused with a wry sense of humor. His direction elevates the material, giving it a unique identity that sets it apart from more conventional action comedies. By fusing his past sensibilities with a broader emotional range, Naishuller delivers a film that is both entertaining and unmistakably his. Ilya Naishuller's direction in Heads of State is a vivid extension of his signature style, visceral, kinetic, and unapologetically stylized, yet it also marks a tonal evolution from his earlier work. Known for Hardcore Henry and Nobody, Naishuller has built a reputation for crafting high-energy action sequences with a strong visual identity, often blending first-person perspectives, dynamic camera movement, and dark humor. In Heads of State, he adapts these trademarks to a broader, more mainstream canvas while preserving his distinct creative voice. Framing and visual language. Naishuller's use of framing is both functional and expressive. He frequently employs tight, handheld shots during action scenes to heighten immediacy, then contrasts them with wide, symmetrical compositions that emphasize the absurdity of the protagonist's situations. The Air Force One sequence, for instance, features rapid cuts and shifting perspectives that simulate chaos without sacrificing spatial clarity. Drone-mounted shots and POV-inspired angles, reminiscent of Hardcore Henry, are used sparingly but effectively, grounding the spectacle in a sense of physicality. Pacing and rhythm. The film's pacing reflects Naishuller's instinct for momentum. The first act is brisk, establishing character dynamics and geopolitical stakes with minimal exposition. Once the central conflict ignites, the narrative rarely pauses, propelled by a series of escalating set pieces. However, Naishuller is careful to intersperse quieter, character-driven moments, such as the fish and chips reconciliation scene, allowing emotional beats to land without derailing the film's forward thrust. This balance of propulsion and pause is a refinement of the relentless pacing seen in Nobody. Tone and genre fusion. Perhaps the most notable evolution in Naishuller's direction is his command of tone. Heads of State walks a fine line between satire, action, and buddy comedy, and Naishuller modulates these elements with surprising finesse. He leans into the absurdity of the premise, two world leaders on the run, without tipping into parody. The humor is often situational and character-based, echoing the tonal elasticity of 1980s action comedies like Lethal Weapon or Midnight Run. This tonal agility is a departure from the more singular, hyper-violent tone of his earlier films. Influence of previous work. Naishuller's experience with Nobody is particularly evident in the choreography and staging of action. The fight scenes in Heads of State are less brutal but retain a sense of grounded choreography and improvisational energy. His meticulous storyboarding, reportedly reworking the Air Force One sequence 10 times, demonstrates a commitment to clarity and rhythm that elevates the film's set pieces. Moreover, his penchant for visual gags and physical comedy, seen in Hardcore Henry, resurfaces here in moments like the grenade launcher mishap or the sheep-filled getaway. In sum, Heads of State showcases a director in transition, retaining the stylistic bravado that defined his earlier work while embracing a more character-driven, genre-blending sensibility. Naishuller's fingerprints are all over the film, but they're applied with a lighter, more confident touch, signaling a maturation of his cinematic voice. The screenplay of Heads of State operates with a confident balance of structure, character development, and tonal versatility. Written by Josh Appelbaum and André Nemec, the script is both tightly constructed and surprisingly layered, with a narrative that leans into genre tropes only to twist them in clever and refreshing ways. From start to finish, the writing maintains a brisk pace, never bogging down in exposition, yet still managing to flesh out character arcs and narrative stakes. The flow of the story is one of its strongest aspects. The plot unfolds with a steady rhythm, punctuated by high-energy set pieces that are grounded in character motivation rather than spectacle for its own sake. Each act moves with purpose, introducing new settings, obstacles, and shifts in character relationships. The screenplay avoids unnecessary subplots, keeping the focus firmly on the evolving dynamic between the two leads while still carving out space for secondary characters to influence the outcome in meaningful ways. Dialogue is where the script particularly shines. Each character has a distinct voice, from Elba's terse, calculated delivery to Cena's loose, often improvised humor. The banter between the two leads is sharp and rhythmically timed, managing to be both character-revealing and genuinely funny. What elevates the dialogue is its use of subtext, especially in scenes where mistrust or buried trauma lingers just beneath the surface. Rather than spelling everything out, the script allows silences, offhand remarks, or clashing perspectives to carry emotional weight. There are moments when the dialogue dips into cliché, particularly during action-heavy sequences where one-liners feel obligatory. However, these are generally offset by the sincerity and depth of the film's quieter exchanges. A recurring motif in the script, where characters are forced to reevaluate their assumptions about identity, loyalty, and competence, is handled with care, weaving thematic threads through both the spoken lines and the choices characters make. The humor is also notably well integrated. Rather than relying on punchlines alone, the comedy emerges from situational absurdity, personality clashes, and character-driven conflict. This makes the film feel more organic and allows the audience to invest in the characters without sacrificing laughs for emotional authenticity. In the end, the screenplay succeeds because it respects its characters and its audience. It tells a story that is not only entertaining but layered with intention. With dialogue that balances wit and heart, and a structure that supports both spectacle and substance, the writing in Heads of State contributes significantly to the film's overall impact. The screenplay of Heads of State, penned by Josh Appelbaum, André Nemec and Harrison Query, is a high-wire act of tonal juggling, ambitiously blending action, satire, and buddy comedy tropes. While it doesn't always land with precision, it delivers a script that is structurally sound, thematically pointed, and often sharply entertaining. Narrative flow and structure. The story unfolds with brisk momentum, adhering to a classic three-act structure that supports its genre-blending ambitions. The inciting incident, the downing of Air Force One, occurs early, propelling the protagonist into a globe-trotting survival narrative. The midpoint twist involving the vice president's betrayal is well-timed, and the climax in Trieste offers a satisfying convergence of character arcs and political stakes. However, transitions between comedic banter and geopolitical tension occasionally feel abrupt, particularly in the second act, where tonal shifts undercut the emotional weight of certain scenes. Character voices and dialogue. Each principal character is given a distinct voice that reflects their background and worldview. Will Derringer's dialogue is laced with bravado, pop culture references, and self-deprecating humor. His lines often parody action hero cliches, which John Cena delivers with meta-awareness. For example, his quip during a firefight, "I've done this with blanks and better lighting," encapsulates his arc from performative heroism to genuine leadership. Sam Clarke's speech is clipped, formal, and laced with dry wit. His British restraint contrasts effectively with Derringer's flamboyance, creating a rhythm of friction and eventual harmony. His line, "Puns are for simple people," followed by Derringer's "I love puns," is emblematic of their dynamic. Noel Bisset's dialogue is more grounded and emotionally restrained, often serving as the moral compass. Her exchanges with Clarke are layered with subtext, hinting at unresolved history without overt exposition. The supporting cast also benefits from well-defined voices. Marty Comer's enthusiastic rambling, Elizabeth Kirk's icy precision, and Arthur Hammond's haunted introspection all contribute to a textured soundscape. However, some secondary characters, particularly the assassins Sasha and Olga, veer into caricature, relying on visual flair rather than verbal nuance. Subtext and thematic resonance. The screenplay embeds commentary on celebrity politics, institutional decay, and the performative nature of leadership. Derringer's arc critiques the conflation of charisma with competence, while Clarke's journey explores the cost of emotional repression in public service. The dialogue often carries subtextual weight, such as Kirk's monologue about putting the oxygen mask on ourselves first, which doubles as a critique of isolationist policy. That said, the film occasionally sacrifices depth for momentum. The emotional fallout from betrayals and losses is sometimes glossed over in favor of the next set piece or punchline. While this keeps the pacing taut, it limits the screenplay's capacity for introspection, authenticity, and engagement. Despite its heightened premise, the dialogue feels authentic within the film's stylized world. The banter is sharp, the political satire timely, and the emotional beats, when given space, are effective. The screenplay's greatest strength lies in its ability to oscillate between absurdity and sincerity without losing its narrative thread. In sum, Heads of State boasts a screenplay that is clever, character-driven, and thematically ambitious. While not without its tonal inconsistencies, it succeeds in crafting a dialogue-rich, genre-savvy narrative that entertains as much as it provokes. The cinematography in Heads of State is sleek, kinetic, and deliberately expressive, serving as a visual engine that drives the film's dynamic blend of action, comedy, and espionage. Shot by a cinematographer attuned to both spectacle and nuance, the film makes strong use of camera movements, lighting choices, and color palettes to reinforce character dynamics, tonal shifts, and thematic undercurrents. Camera movement is one of the most defining aspects of the visual style. Action sequences are captured with fluid tracking shots, whip pans, and occasionally handheld intensity, creating a sense of immediacy and immersion. This technique allows the audience to stay close to the chaos without losing clarity. During chase scenes or shootouts, the camera often follows characters in long, unbroken takes, emphasizing spatial continuity and keeping the tension high. In quieter scenes, the movement becomes more restrained and deliberate, allowing characters to occupy the frame and carry emotional weight without distraction. Shot composition is purposeful and varied. Wide-angle shots are used to establish scale, especially during international location setups, while tight framing brings attention to interpersonal conflict or introspection. Scenes involving Marshal Idris Elba often feature symmetrical, centered compositions that reflect his disciplined nature, while writers John Cena, scenes are more erratically framed, underscoring his chaotic and unpredictable persona. When the two share the frame, the composition adjusts to reflect their evolving partnership, beginning with visible distance and imbalance, and gradually tightening as their rapport deepens. Lighting is used to underscore the shifts in tone. High-contrast lighting dominates action and espionage sequences, with deep shadows and directional light creating a noir-like intensity. In contrast, comedic and character-driven scenes are often brighter, utilizing natural or soft lighting to evoke warmth or levity. One standout example is a night scene lit primarily by neon signage and dim backlights, where an emotionally pivotal conversation unfolds. The lighting subtly accentuates vulnerability and tension without resorting to overt dramatization. The color palette shifts depending on location and narrative context. Urban scenes favor cold blues, grays, and desaturated tones, emphasizing the bureaucratic and sterile world of intelligence work. Exotic or high-stakes locations feature more vibrant hues, rich golds, reds, and greens, to suggest both cultural contrast and heightened danger. These visual cues help guide the viewer emotionally, even when the tone veers sharply between humor and suspense. Visual storytelling is deeply integrated throughout the film. Objects, costume design, and environmental details often carry subtext, such as a recurring symbolic motif worn by Zara, Priyanka Chopra Jonas, or the strategic placement of reflections and mirrors to highlight dual identities and shifting alliances. These choices elevate the narrative, reinforcing themes of trust, deception, and transformation without relying solely on dialogue. In essence, the cinematography in Heads of State is not just functional, it's expressive and intentional. Through thoughtful visual composition, dynamic movement, and thematic lighting, the film tells its story with a visual language that complements its narrative depth and tonal variety. It's a clear example of how cinematography can enhance and enrich a genre film, making it both stylish and emotionally resonant. The cinematography of Heads of State, led by Ben Davis, is a dynamic fusion of stylized action and satirical spectacle, designed to support the film's genre-blending ambitions. Davis, known for his work on 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri and several Marvel films, brings a polished yet playful visual language that enhances both the comedic and dramatic beats of the story. Camera movements and kinetic energy. The film employs a wide range of camera techniques to reflect its tonal shifts. Handheld and Steadicam shots dominate the action sequences, lending immediacy and chaos, particularly during the Air Force One attack in the Warsaw Safehouse ambush. Tracking shots and whip pans are used to comedic effect, often following the protagonist through absurd or high-stakes scenarios, such as the goat truck escape in Belarus. A standout moment includes a mid-fight POV shot from inside a thug's mouth, a nod to Ilya Naishuller's hardcore Henry roots, injecting visual novelty into familiar action tropes. Shot composition and framing. Davis balances symmetry and asymmetry to underscore character dynamics. Symmetrical wide shots frame Clarke and Derringer in formal diplomatic settings, emphasizing their public personas and ideological distance. As their relationship evolves, the framing becomes looser and more intimate, often placing them in shared two shots that reflect growing camaraderie. The use of foreground obstructions, such as shattered glass or debris, adds texture and tension during chase scenes, while also reinforcing the protagonist's vulnerability. Lighting and tonal contrast. Lighting choices are instrumental in modulating the film's tonal shifts. High-key lighting dominates comedic and satirical scenes, particularly in media-facing moments or political backrooms, creating a polished, artificial sheen. In contrast, low-key lighting is used in espionage sequences and betrayals, such as the Croatia safehouse scene, where shadows and silhouettes heighten suspense. The La Tomatina sequence in Spain is bathed in natural, saturated light, creating a surreal juxtaposition between festive chaos and lethal violence. Color palettes and symbolic resonance. The film's color design is deliberate and expressive. Warm tones, oranges, reds, and golds, dominate scenes involving Derringer, reflecting his performative charisma and media-savvy persona. Cooler hues, blues, grays, and muted greens surround Clarke, reinforcing his stoicism and military discipline. The convergence of these palettes in shared scenes, particularly during the Trieste summit, visually mirrors the character's ideological reconciliation. The use of red as a recurring motif, from tomatoes to blood to political banners, underscores themes of spectacle, violence, and public perception. Visual storytelling and thematic reinforcement. The cinematography doesn't merely support the narrative, it deepens it. The contrast between polished political environments and gritty field locations visually reinforces the film's critique of performative leadership versus real-world consequences. Recurring visual motifs such as mirrored reflections and surveillance screens highlight the film's preoccupation with image, control, and duplicity. The final chase through Trieste, with its sun-drenched plazas and narrow alleys, is shot with a fluid, almost balletic rhythm, culminating in a visual crescendo that mirrors the protagonist's emotional catharsis. In sum, Heads of State uses its cinematography not just to dazzle, but to articulate character arcs, satirize political theater, and ground its absurdity in a coherent visual grammar. It's a film that understands the power of the frame, not just to entertain but to reveal. The production design of Heads of State is bold, immersive, and carefully constructed to reflect the film's dual nature, grounded political intrigue paired with exaggerated buddy comedy flair. From sleek war rooms to chaotic back alleys, every set and costume is tailored to enhance the narrative's globe-trotting espionage atmosphere while also highlighting character contrast and thematic depth. The sets are a standout feature in establishing the world's tone. Government offices, intelligence command centers, and high-security bunkers are rendered with clean lines, glass walls, and minimalist tech, emphasizing control, surveillance, and modern bureaucracy. These cold, metallic environments reflect the rigid mindset of Elba's character, Marshall, and provide a visual counterpoint to the film's more vibrant and unpredictable locations. In contrast, scenes in war-torn regions, bustling marketplaces, or lavish hideouts are filled with texture, color, and lived-in detail. Each space tells a story of its own, with layered props and thoughtful design that suggest political instability, cultural tension, or hidden danger. One particularly memorable set is an abandoned embassy-turned-rogue intelligence hub, dusty, dimly lit, and retrofitted with makeshift equipment. This space becomes a narrative crossroads, representing both the breakdown of official order and the necessity of improvisation, tying directly into the film's core theme of adapting to chaos. Costume design is equally expressive. Marshall's wardrobe is composed of muted, tailored suits and tactical gear, underscoring his no-nonsense discipline and strategic mindset. Every button and seam reinforces his professional identity. Ryder, on the other hand, begins the film in flashy, impractical attire that screams ego and overconfidence, leather jackets, bold prints, and sneakers that don't belong in the field. As the story progresses, his wardrobe subtly shifts toward more functional, subdued outfits, mirroring his gradual transformation into a team player and reluctant hero. Zara, Priyanka Chopra Jonas, is dressed with calculated elegance, her costumes often blending high fashion with practicality, reflecting a character who operates in the shadows while maintaining a commanding presence. Her appearance evolves alongside her shifting loyalties, hinting at deeper motives without needing explicit exposition. Meanwhile, the antagonist, portrayed by Carla Gugino, is adorned in clean, sharply cut ensembles, often monochromatic with bold accents, suggesting precision, control, and emotional detachment. The use of color and texture in both sets and costumes helps visually distinguish different factions and allegiances within the film. Cool tones dominate government and military locations, while rich, saturated colors define rogue elements and international territories. This contrast not only aids in visual clarity but also reinforces the thematic dichotomy between order and improvisation, logic and chaos. Overall, the production design in Heads of State does far more than decorate the background. It actively shapes the story, enriches character identity, and reinforces the emotional and thematic arcs. It's a carefully orchestrated world that feels simultaneously real and heightened, grounding the film's action-comedy hybrid in a stylish yet believable reality. The production design of Heads of State is a carefully orchestrated blend of realism and stylization, designed to ground its absurd premise in a world that feels both politically charged and cinematically heightened. Under the direction of production designer Neil Maroney, the film's visual environment reinforces its thematic dualities: chaos and control, spectacle and sincerity, diplomacy and deception. Production design and sets. The film's international scope is reflected in its diverse and meticulously crafted locations. Air Force One interior. Built at Longcross Studios, the replica of the presidential aircraft is both opulent and claustrophobic, symbolizing the illusion of control that quickly unravels. The set's sleek, modernist design contrasts with the chaos that ensues during the attack, emphasizing the fragility of power. Trieste Summit Venue. Filmed at Liverpool's St. George's Hall, the neoclassical grandeur of the summit location evokes the weight of international diplomacy. The ornate columns and marble interiors serve as a visual counterpoint to the film's kinetic action, reinforcing the stakes of global unity. Safe houses and hideouts. From the gritty Warsaw apartment to the makeshift Croatian hacker den, these sets are dressed with layered textures, peeling paint, outdated tech, and improvised defenses that reflect the protagonist's descent into the underworld of espionage. La Tomatina Recreation. The Spanish festival sequence, filmed in Sospel, France, is a standout in terms of set design. Using prop tomatoes, dyed jelly, and practical effects, the production recreated the chaotic vibrancy of the real event while maintaining control over the visual palette. The result is a surreal, almost operatic backdrop for the film's opening action. Costume design. Costume designer Sammy Sheldon Differ crafts wardrobes that reflect character psychology and narrative evolution. Will Derringer, John Cena. Initially clad in tailored suits with exaggerated American flag lapel pins and designer sunglasses, Derringer's look parodies the performative nature of political image-making. As the film progresses, his attire becomes more utilitarian: scuffed boots, rolled-up sleeves, and a bulletproof vest, mirroring his shift from figurehead to active participant. Sam Clarke, Idris Elba. Clarke's wardrobe is rooted in military precision, dark suits, crisp shirts, and minimalist accessories. His transition is subtler, marked by loosened ties and bloodied cuffs, signaling a reluctant embrace of improvisation and vulnerability. Noel Bisset, Priyanka Chopra Jonas. Bisset's costumes balance functionality and elegance. Her tactical gear is sleek and form-fitting, designed for mobility without sacrificing authority. In flashbacks, she appears in muted civilian wear, hinting at a more personal, emotionally complex past. Symbolic and thematic resonance. The contrast between polished political environments and raw, improvised battlegrounds underscores the film's critique of performative leadership versus real-world consequences. Color motifs, such as the recurring use of red in tomatoes, blood, and political banners, tie together themes of violence, spectacle, and public perception. The costume degradation over time visually tracks the characters' psychological arcs, reinforcing the narrative's emphasis on transformation through adversity. In sum, the production design, sets, and costumes of Heads of State do more than decorate the frame. They articulate the film's ideological tensions and character journeys. By grounding satire in tactile, immersive environments, the film achieves a visual coherence that enhances both its humor and its stakes. The musical score and soundtrack of Heads of State play a pivotal role in shaping the film's rhythm, mood, and emotional depth, serving as more than just background accompaniment. They're active storytellers in their own right. Crafted with a blend of contemporary orchestration, pulsing electronic beats, and strategic song placements, the music enhances the film's tonal duality. Sleek political thriller meets high-energy action comedy. The original score, composed by a team known for blending cinematic scope with modern edge, uses a rich combination of orchestral tension and synth-heavy undertones. During espionage sequences and high-stakes moments, the score leans into moody textures and subtle rhythmic pulses, often mimicking a ticking clock to amplify suspense. These restrained cues create an atmosphere of anticipation and unease, grounding the viewer in the seriousness of the mission without overpowering the dialogue or visuals. Conversely, action scenes are accompanied by bold, propulsive musical arrangements that marry orchestral brass with heavy bass lines and percussion-driven motifs. These choices elevate the energy, synchronizing with fast-paced camera work and rapid editing to keep the audience fully engaged. The score doesn't just react to the action, it drives it, adding tension, release, and momentum. The standout musical moment arrives during a mid-film chase scene where layered percussion, electric strings, and a faint choral backing come together to create a pulse-pounding sequence that matches the emotional stakes as much as the physical ones. The soundtrack, featuring a curated mix of licensed tracks across genres, hip-hop, alternative rock, funk, and even international pop, adds flavor and contrast. These tracks are used sparingly but with precision. Early comedic scenes benefit from upbeat, ironic song choices that highlight the absurdity of writers' John Cena situation, while more somber moments are underscored with stripped-down acoustic pieces or low-tempo instrumentals that reflect character vulnerability, particularly in scenes focused on Marshall's, Idris Elba, internal struggles. One of the film's most emotionally resonant moments features a subdued piano theme as the protagonists share a rare, honest conversation under the cover of night. The restraint in the score allows the dialogue to breathe while subtly deepening the emotional impact, proving the composer's ability to support a scene without overwhelming it. Transitions between score and soundtrack are smooth and intentional, creating a cohesive oral identity. The music reflects character development. Early tracks often clash tonally, much like the two leads, but by the film's final act, recurring motifs are interwoven and harmonized, subtly reinforcing their growing bond and shared purpose. In sum, the music in Heads of State is smartly constructed, emotionally attuned, and stylistically consistent. It amplifies comedic beats without undermining tension, injects adrenaline into action sequences, and underscores dramatic moments with sensitivity. By weaving music so tightly into the film's narrative fabric, the score and soundtrack not only heighten the viewer's experience but also contribute to the film's voice and identity in lasting, memorable ways. The musical score and soundtrack of Heads of State, composed by Academy Award winner Stephen Price, serve as a dynamic narrative engine, elevating the film's tonal shifts, reinforcing character arcs, and enhancing both comedic and dramatic beats with precision and flair. Known for his work on Gravity, Baby Driver, and Last Night in Soho, Price brings a layered sensibility that aligns seamlessly with the film's genre-blending ambitions. Original score and emotional undercurrents. Price's original compositions are thematically rich and structurally responsive to the film's evolving emotional landscape. Tracks like Hope is Just Delayed Disappointment and It Was Nice to Do Something Good for a Change underscore moments of introspection and vulnerability, particularly for characters like Clarke and Bisset. These cues are orchestrated with restrained strings and ambient textures, allowing emotional beats to breathe without overwhelming the scene. In contrast, Kill Them All and Commanders in Beef inject urgency and bravado into action sequences, using percussive rhythms and brass swells to mirror the protagonist's escalating stakes. Atmosphere and tonal modulation. The score's versatility is one of its greatest strengths. Price deftly shifts from bombastic orchestration in Air Force One to the melancholic minimalism of His Son Was a Scientist, reflecting the film's oscillation between spectacle and sincerity. The recurring motif in The Special Relationship evolves throughout the film, subtly altering its instrumentation to reflect the changing dynamic between Derringer and Clarke, from antagonism to reluctant partnership. This thematic continuity anchors the film's emotional through line, even as the narrative traverses wildly different settings and moods. Integration of licensed songs. The soundtrack also features a curated selection of licensed tracks that amplify the film's satirical and comedic edge. For instance, Volare by Gypsy Kings opens the La Tomatina sequence with ironic exuberance, juxtaposing festive chaos with covert surveillance. Sabotage by Beastie Boys energizes the Warsaw Safehouse ambush, aligning perfectly with the scene's anarchic choreography. Can't Help Falling in Love by Elvis Presley plays during a climactic action sequence, creating a dissonant yet poignant contrast that underscores the protagonist's evolving bond. Lean on Me by Bill Withers closes the film on a note of earned sentimentality, reinforcing the theme of unexpected alliance. These musical choices are not merely decorative, they are narratively functional, often providing subtext or emotional counterpoint that deepens the viewer's engagement. Influence on viewer experience. The score's impact is most palpable in how it guides the audience's emotional rhythm. Whether heightening tension, softening satire, or punctuating absurdity, Price's compositions ensure that the film's tonal shifts feel intentional rather than jarring. The music often acts as a bridge between scenes, smoothing transitions and reinforcing thematic continuity. In moments where dialogue recedes, the score steps forward, never intrusive, always evocative. In sum, the Heads of State soundtrack is a masterclass in tonal navigation. Stephen Price's score, paired with a savvy selection of licensed tracks, not only supports the film's narrative architecture but also enriches its emotional and atmospheric depth. It's a sonic blueprint for how music can elevate genre cinema without sacrificing nuance. The sound design and special effects in Heads of State are finely tuned to amplify the film's immersive experience, blending realism with stylized exaggeration to match its genre-blending tone. From visceral fight scenes to high-stakes espionage sequences, the audiovisual elements work in tandem to heighten tension, deliver impact, and maintain a sense of momentum throughout the film. Sound design plays a critical role in crafting both realism and emotional texture. Every environment, whether it's a bustling foreign market, a sterile intelligence briefing room, or a crumbling urban battlefield, has its own distinct soundscape. Ambient layers are rich and purposeful. The distant hum of surveillance tech, the sharp tap of boots in echoing corridors, the subtle rustle of weapons being drawn. These auditory cues ground the action in a believable world and subtly inform the viewer's sense of location and mood. Action sequences are where the sound design truly excels. Gunfire is crisp and varied depending on weapon type and setting. Punches land with bone-cracking weight. Explosions rumble with depth and dimension without becoming overwhelming. The mixing ensures clarity. Dialogue remains audible even in chaotic scenes, and important auditory beats are never lost in the sonic clutter. Chase scenes are particularly well handled, with layered elements like tire screeches, breathy exertion, and environmental echoes all contributing to the tension and forward drive. The sound is also used to support comedic timing. Well-placed silences, exaggerated Foley effects, and sudden audio dropouts are employed to accentuate awkward moments or unexpected character reactions. This subtle auditory humor aligns perfectly with the buddy comedy structure, adding an extra layer of engagement without being overt. On the visual effects front, Heads of State strikes an effective balance between practical and digital techniques. Explosions, stunts, and vehicle crashes rely heavily on real-world effects enhanced by minimal CGI augmentation, which adds to the film's grounded texture. When CGI is used, such as in surveillance overlays, drone perspectives, or high-tech digital displays, it is integrated cleanly and believably, never drawing attention away from the actors or scene. More elaborate visual sequences, like skydiving insertions or high-altitude rescues, are rendered with a sense of scale and excitement that feels real but cinematic. Motion blur, lighting consistency, and seamless compositing help these effects avoid the artificial sheen that sometimes plagues action comedies. The filmmaker's decision to keep effects grounded in plausibility, even when the action edges into the outrageous, preserves the film's tonal coherence. In summary, the sound design and special effects in Heads of State are expertly crafted to support both the tension and levity inherent in the film. They enhance the storytelling without ever distracting from it, creating a sonic and visual landscape that is both thrilling and believable. By blending realism with stylized flair, These technical elements contribute to the film's immersive and entertaining impact. The sound design and special effects in Heads of State are integral to its tonal agility, enhancing both the visceral impact of its action and the satirical edge of its narrative. Under the direction of Ilya Naishuller and with sound supervision by James Mather, the film crafts a sonic and visual landscape that is both immersive and self-aware. Sound design and tension building. The film's soundscape is engineered to heighten suspense and punctuate comedic beats with precision. Dynamic layering of ambient noise, such as the hum of surveillance drones or the distant rumble of protests, creates a sense of geopolitical unease. Gunfire and explosions are rendered with tactile realism. Each shot carries weight, with directional audio that enhances spatial awareness during chaotic sequences. In quieter moments, diegetic sounds like the creak of a leather chair or the clink of a whiskey glass are amplified to underscore character tension, particularly in scenes involving betrayal or moral reckoning. The La Tomatina sequence is a standout. The squelch of tomatoes, the slap of wet shoes, and the muffled gunfire through pulp create a surreal, almost grotesque auditory texture that mirrors the absurdity of the situation. Realism versus stylization. While grounded in real-world settings, the film leans into stylized exaggeration. Fight scenes are punctuated with exaggerated impact sounds, bone crunches, ricochets, and slow-motion reverb that heighten the comic book sensibility without sacrificing intensity. Vehicle chases, particularly the bulletproof limo sequence in Trieste, feature layered engine roars, tire screeches, and environmental echoes that maintain realism while embracing cinematic flair. The use of silence is strategic. Moments of stillness before an ambush or during emotional revelations are underscored by the absence of sound, creating contrast and emotional weight. Special effects integration. Visual effects are seamlessly woven into the film's practical environments. The Air Force One destruction sequence blends practical pyrotechnics with digital augmentation, maintaining physical believability while delivering spectacle. Digital doubles and compositing are used sparingly but effectively, particularly in wide shots of the protagonists parachuting over Belarus or during the summit siege. The recreation of global landmarks, from the NATO summit in Liverpool's St. George's Hall to the Croatian hacker den, relies on a mix of location shooting and digital set extensions, preserving authenticity while expanding scale. Fantasy elements and satirical exaggeration. Though not a fantasy film, Heads of State embraces a heightened reality. The Beast limo chase borders on cartoonish, with improbable stunts and exaggerated physics, yet the sound design sells each moment with conviction. Metal groans, glass shatters, and engine surges are rendered with visceral clarity. Gradov's hacking sequences are accompanied by synthetic pulses and glitch textures, evoking a techno-thriller aesthetic that contrasts with the analog grit of field operations. In essence, the film's sound and visual effects are not just technical flourishes, they are narrative tools that reinforce tone, character, and theme. By blending realism with stylized absurdity, Heads of State crafts a sensory experience that is as sharp and self-aware as its script. Heads of State explores a variety of timely and resonant themes beneath its action comedy exterior, weaving them into the fabric of its story, characters, and visuals. While the film delivers adrenaline and laughs on the surface, it also offers thoughtful commentary on trust, identity, power, and the blurry lines between heroism and bureaucracy in a modern world shaped by deception and spectacle. One of the most prominent themes is trust versus control. This is embodied through the contrasting personalities of Marshall, Idris Elba, and writer John Cena. Marshall is a by-the-book operative who has built his life around discipline, predictability, and mistrust, skills necessary for survival in the intelligence world. Ryder, on the other hand, thrives on instinct, improvisation, and emotional openness, often to a fault. Their uneasy alliance forces both characters to confront their own limitations. Marshall must learn to relinquish control and trust others, while Ryder must mature into someone who can be trusted. This thematic arc is reinforced through repeated visual motifs: mirrors, locked doors, surveillance screens, symbolizing how little people in power truly see or know about one another. Another central theme is perception versus reality, especially in relation to identity. Ryder, a former action movie star, is initially viewed as a joke, both by others and himself. Yet through his journey, the film challenges the idea that only those with official titles and government clearance can be effective. This theme is particularly relevant in an era where image often overshadows substance, and the film uses Ryder's transformation to critique the performative aspects of both celebrity culture and political power. The film also delves into the corruptibility of power and the illusion of order. Through its depiction of shadowy government agencies, rogue missions, and morally ambiguous characters like Zara, Priyanka Chopra Jonas, heads of state suggest that those in power often operate with hidden agendas, and that the institutions we trust may not be as stable or ethical as they appear. These ideas are echoed in the production design: cold, impersonal offices, glitchy surveillance systems, masked operatives, visually reinforcing the fragility of the structures that claim to protect us. Themes of redemption and transformation also run strongly through the narrative. Both protagonists are broken or discredited in their own ways, and the film charts their path toward reclaiming purpose and agency. Their growth is gradual and earned, shaped by choices made under pressure rather than sudden, unearned shifts in personality. By the end, the characters' willingness to change becomes a hopeful message that people, even those defined by ego or trauma, can evolve when they are pushed to connect, compromise, and care. These themes are delivered with a tone that never becomes preachy. Through character dynamics, visual symbolism, and a story that oscillates between absurdity and sincerity, Heads of State offers its audience more than just entertainment. It asks viewers to reconsider who gets to be the hero, how power is wielded, and what it really means to act with integrity in a world driven by performance. The result is a film that resonates on both surface and deeper levels, leaving the audience with laughter, adrenaline, and a few unexpected questions. Heads of State operates on multiple thematic levels, using its action comedy framework to explore ideas of leadership, image versus substance, trust, and the fragile nature of global alliances. Beneath its kinetic pacing and satirical tone lies a pointed commentary on the performative aspects of modern governance and the human cost of political theater. 1. Leadership and public persona ****. At the heart of the film is a critique of how leadership is perceived and performed. Will Derringer, a former action star turned U.S. president, embodies the conflation of celebrity and political power. His arc challenges the notion that charisma and media savvy equate to competence. Sam Clarke, the British Prime Minister, represents the opposite extreme: stoic, disciplined, and emotionally repressed. His journey reveals the limitations of rigid professionalism in a world that demands adaptability and empathy. The contrast between these two figures underscores the film's central question: what makes a leader truly effective, image or integrity? 2. Trust, betrayal, and alliance ****. The narrative is driven by shifting allegiances and betrayals. The protagonists are forced to rely on each other after being betrayed by their own governments, highlighting the precariousness of institutional loyalty. Vice President Kirk's betrayal and Gradov's manipulation of global surveillance systems reflect the erosion of trust in political institutions and the dangers of internal corruption. The rekindled trust between Clarke and Bisset, and the evolving bond between Clarke and Derringer, suggest that personal integrity can prevail even when systems fail. 3. Satire of geopolitical spectacle ****. The film satirizes the theatricality of international diplomacy. The NATO summit, staged in a neoclassical hall with grand speeches and symbolic gestures, is juxtaposed with the chaos of real-world espionage and violence. The use of media optics, such as the viral fish and chips scandal, illustrates how public perception often overrides substantive policy. The absurdity of the La Tomatina shootout and the Go Truck escape lampoon the disconnect between political posturing and ground-level consequences. 4. Redemption and reconciliation ***. Each main character undergoes a form of personal reckoning. Derringer seeks redemption from his shallow past, ultimately embracing the responsibilities of leadership. Clarke confronts his emotional isolation and learns to collaborate and forgive. Bisset reconciles her professional duty with personal loss, becoming the film's moral compass. 5. Unity in diversity ****. The film's climactic message is one of cooperation across ideological and national divides. The protagonist's survival hinges on their ability to bridge cultural and political differences. The final speeches at the NATO summit, though laced with humor, advocate for mutual respect and shared responsibility in a fractured world. The post-credits scene with Marty Comer's unexpected survival and Bisset's reappearance hints at the resilience of unlikely alliances. Visual and tonal reinforcement. The convergence of warm and cool color palettes mirrors the ideological fusion between Derringer and Clarke. The degradation of costumes and settings, from pristine political offices to war-torn safe houses, visually tracks the collapse of illusion and the emergence of authenticity. The score and sound design shift from bombastic to introspective in tandem with character development, reinforcing emotional beats. Audience impact. While Heads of State is packaged as a popcorn spectacle, its themes resonate in an era of political polarization and media-driven leadership. Viewers are invited to laugh at the absurdity of global politics while reflecting on the qualities that define meaningful leadership. The film's blend of satire and sincerity encourages audiences to question appearances, value cooperation, and recognize the human stakes behind geopolitical headlines. Heads of State uses a surprising amount of symbolism and metaphor woven subtly into its fast-paced narrative, enriching the viewer's experience with thematic layers that extend beyond the surface-level action and comedy. While the film doesn't present itself as overtly allegorical, it cleverly embeds visual and narrative cues that reflect larger ideas about leadership, identity, and the often absurd machinery of global politics. One of the most prominent symbolic contrasts in the film is order versus chaos, embodied by the two protagonists. Marshall represents structure, precision, and control, symbolized by his environment, attire, and behavior. He's often framed in clean, symmetrical shots, surrounded by sterile technology or military infrastructure. Ryder, on the other hand, is chaos incarnate, visually linked to cluttered spaces, erratic lighting, and unpredictable movement. The visual evolution of both characters, from opposing visual styles toward a shared, balanced aesthetic, serves as a metaphor for the value of duality, that effective leadership and even survival often requires a blend of discipline and spontaneity. Another symbolic element is mirrors and surveillance screens, which appear frequently throughout the film. These motifs serve as metaphors for fragmented identity, hidden truths, and the duplicity inherent in espionage and politics. Characters are often seen reflected in distorted surfaces or viewed through monitors, suggesting that no one is ever fully what they seem. This is particularly true of Zara, whose allegiances remain ambiguous until late in the film. The constant theme of being watched, or misjudged, echoes the modern world's obsession with perception over reality. The character of Ryder himself functions as a living metaphor for performative leadership. As a former movie star who ends up in a real-life crisis, he becomes a critique of the spectacle-driven culture that blurs the lines between celebrity and competence. His journey from entertainer to actual leader is not just character development. It's an allegory for the public's increasing tendency to equate charisma with credibility, and a reminder that real integrity is earned, not acted. The film's villain, portrayed with icy precision by Carla Gugino, also holds symbolic weight. She isn't just a standard antagonist, she represents systemic indifference and manipulation, a cold embodiment of how powerful institutions often operate without empathy. Her sterile, minimalist surroundings and mechanical dialogue reflect a world where power is devoid of humanity, contrasting starkly with the emotional evolution of the protagonists. One final recurring metaphor is that of the locked room or corridor, appearing repeatedly in both literal and figurative contexts. These enclosed spaces symbolize the barriers, emotional, bureaucratic, ideological, that the characters must break through. Whether it's Marshall confronting his mistrust or Ryder escaping his ego, the act of unlocking or navigating these confined spaces reflects inner growth and the dismantling of personal limitations. By embedding these symbolic elements beneath its flashy action and humor, Heads of State offers more than just thrills. It encourages reflection on the nature of leadership, truth, and collaboration in a complex world. These metaphors may not shout for attention, but they give the film a thoughtful, layered subtext that rewards viewers who look just a little closer. Heads of State employs a rich tapestry of symbolism and metaphor to elevate its action comedy framework into a more reflective and politically resonant narrative. These elements are woven into character arcs, visual motifs, and narrative structure, offering viewers interpretive depth beneath the film's kinetic surface. 1. The fish and chips motif ***. What begins as a petty grudge, Derringer's resentment over Clarke sharing fish and chips with his political rival, evolves into a recurring metaphor for public perception, media manipulation, and the fragility of alliances. The dish becomes a symbol of cultural diplomacy and personal reconciliation. Its reappearance in the final scene, where Clarke offers it as a peace gesture, signifies the healing of ideological divides and the triumph of mutual respect over ego. 2. Air Force One as a symbol of illusionary power ***. The destruction of Air Force One early in the film is more than a plot device. It represents the collapse of institutional security and the illusion of invulnerability that often surrounds heads of state. Once stripped of their entourages and protocols, the protagonists are forced to confront the realities of leadership without the safety net of spectacle or ceremony. 3. The Cupid statue and helicopter finale ***. In the climactic moment, Derringer uses a Cupid statue to destroy Gradov's escape helicopter. This act is both literal and symbolic. A weaponized emblem of love and unity is used to defeat a figure of vengeance and division. It encapsulates the film's central thesis, that cooperation and empathy, however absurdly framed, are more powerful than isolationism and retribution. 4. Gradov's son and the stolen legacy ***. Gradov's motivation, avenging the death and erasure of his son, a scientist whose clean energy invention was co-opted by NATO, functions as an allegory for the exploitation of innovation by political powers. His son's fate becomes a metaphor for how idealism is often sacrificed at the altar of geopolitical expediency. This adds moral ambiguity to the antagonist's arc, challenging viewers to consider the cost of progress and the ethics of statecraft. 5. The La Tomatina sequence ***. Opening the film with a blood-red tomato festival that devolves into a massacre is a striking visual metaphor. The blending of celebration and violence foreshadows the film's tonal duality and critiques the performative nature of global politics, where pageantry often masks peril. The red pulp coating the streets becomes a symbolic canvas of chaos, spectacle, and collateral damage. 6. The special relationship theme ***. The evolving dynamic between Clarke and Derringer allegorizes the historical U.S.U.K alliance. Their initial friction, rooted in cultural misunderstanding and political posturing, mirrors real-world tensions between allied nations. Their eventual partnership, forged through shared adversity, suggests that authentic diplomacy requires vulnerability, not just protocol. 7. Echelon and surveillance as a mirror ***. The echelon system, capable of exposing every secret, serves as a metaphor for the transparency paradox in modern governance. It reflects the tension between national security and public accountability, and its misuse by Gradov underscores the dangers of unchecked surveillance. The system becomes a narrative mirror, revealing not just secrets, but the ethical rot beneath polished institutions. Together, these symbolic and metaphorical layers enrich Heads of State beyond its genre trappings. They invite viewers to reflect on the nature of leadership, the cost of image-making, and the fragile scaffolding of global cooperation, all while delivering a story that's as entertaining as it is thematically resonant. Heads of State delivers a surprisingly rich emotional journey, cleverly masked beneath its explosive action and irreverent humor. While the film's surface-level appeal comes from its high-energy sequences and comedic duo, it steadily builds an undercurrent of emotional resonance that connects with viewers on multiple levels, offering moments of empathy, excitement, reflection, and even quiet vulnerability. The film evokes excitement through its relentless pacing and inventive set pieces. The thrill of chase scenes, the tension of standoffs, and the spectacle of international espionage keep the audience visually and viscerally engaged. But these moments don't exist in a vacuum, they're laced with character stakes. Because we care about the leads and understand what they stand to lose, the action carries emotional weight rather than feeling disposable. Empathy is gradually earned, especially through the character arcs of Marshall and Ryder. Marshall's internal struggle with trust and past trauma is handled with restraint, but a few key moments, such as his quiet confession about a betrayal that still haunts him, reveal a depth that resonates. These emotionally honest beats, especially when juxtaposed against the otherwise stoic persona he presents, create a sense of shared human fragility. Ryder's transformation from loud-mouthed liability to surprisingly capable ally also fosters empathy. His desire to be taken seriously, masked by humor and bravado, is something many viewers can relate to. His most emotional moment, stepping into a leadership role when no one else believes in him, lands powerfully because of the vulnerability behind it. The film also manages to evoke fear and tension, especially in scenes that explore surveillance, betrayal, and ethical ambiguity. The sense that no one is truly safe, not even those operating within the highest levels of authority, adds a subtle layer of unease. The antagonist's calm, calculated demeanor and the pervasive sense of being watched contribute to this quiet dread, reminding audiences that power can be impersonal and merciless. One of the film's most emotionally connective scenes is a quiet rooftop exchange between the two leads. With the city lights below and the noise of their mission momentarily silenced, they share personal stories and unspoken doubts. It's here, free of action and sarcasm, that the film reaches into deeper emotional terrain, touching on themes of failure, redemption, and the loneliness of leadership. It's an unexpected pause that leaves a lasting impression. By the end, Heads of State offers reflection through its resolution. It suggests that heroism isn't about perfection or title, but about accountability, adaptability, and connection. Viewers walk away not just entertained, but subtly challenged to reconsider what leadership looks like and how trust is earned, not demanded. In sum, the emotional impact of Heads of State lies in its balance. It doesn't force sentiment, but allows it to emerge naturally through action, humor, and human moments. It's a film that respects the intelligence of its audience, offering thrills and laughs while gently weaving in moments of truth that linger long after the final scene. Heads of State crafts an emotional journey that is as surprising as it is deliberate, using its genre-blending structure to guide viewers through a spectrum of feelings: laughter, tension, empathy, and ultimately reflection. While the film is anchored in action comedy, its emotional resonance emerges from the interplay between spectacle and sincerity, character growth, and thematic subtext. Empathy and character vulnerability. The film's emotional core lies in its character's evolution. Will Derringer's arc, from a self-absorbed celebrity president to a man grappling with the weight of real leadership, invites empathy through moments of self-doubt and quiet introspection. His confrontation with Vice President Kirk, where he realizes the extent of her betrayal, is played not for melodrama but for emotional clarity, revealing his internal conflict between image and integrity. Sam Clarke's emotional journey is more restrained but equally affecting. His stoicism gradually gives way to vulnerability, particularly in scenes with Noel Bisset. Their shared history is never overexplained, but conveyed through glances, silences, and subtle gestures, most notably during the Croatia safehouse sequence, where Clarke's near-death moment is punctuated by Bisset's silent anguish. These moments humanize the characters, grounding the film's absurdity in emotional truth. Excitement and spectacle. The film excels at generating excitement through inventive set pieces and escalating stakes. The Air Force One takedown, the La Tomatina ambush, and the Trieste Summit siege are not just adrenaline-fueled sequences, they're emotionally charged turning points. The audience is not merely thrilled by the action but invested in the characters' survival and decisions. The climactic helicopter showdown, where Clarke and Derringer improvise a plan using a Cupid statue, is both exhilarating and symbolic, blending humor with catharsis. Fear and tension. Despite its comedic tone, the film doesn't shy away from moments of genuine peril. The Warsaw safehouse ambush in particular, is a standout for its claustrophobic tension and emotional stakes. The apparent death of Marty Comer adds a layer of unpredictability, reminding viewers that the film's world, while stylized, carries real consequences. The betrayal by Kirk also injects a sense of dread, as it reframes earlier scenes with a chilling new context, reflection and thematic resonance. What lingers after the credits is not just the spectacle, but the film's commentary on leadership, trust, and the performative nature of politics. The final pub scene, where Clarke offers Derringer fish and chips, serves as a quiet, reflective coda. It's a moment of earned camaraderie, signaling that beneath the satire lies a sincere belief in the possibility of unity and redemption. The post-credits reveal of Marty's survival, while humorous, also reinforces the film's theme of resilience and the unexpected strength of underestimated individuals. It leaves the audience with a sense of continuity and hope, suggesting that even in a fractured world, connection and cooperation endure. In sum, Heads of State engages its audience not just through laughs and explosions, but through characters who evolve, relationships that deepen, and themes that resonate. It's a film that entertains in the moment and invites reflection long after. The pacing and narrative structure of Heads of State are skillfully crafted to maintain a strong sense of momentum while giving the characters room to grow. The film strikes a tight balance between high-energy action, sharp comedic beats, and moments of emotional depth, making it both engaging and rhythmically satisfying from start to finish. The story unfolds in a classic three-act structure, but it avoids feeling formulaic due to clever transitions and dynamic scene construction. The first act quickly establishes the central conflict, introduces the two contrasting leads, and throws them into the inciting situation with minimal delay. The brisk setup pulls the audience in immediately without sacrificing clarity or character motivation. Exposition is delivered organically, often through witty dialogue or mid-action exchanges, which keeps the tone light and engaging while layering in necessary information. The second act is where the film does its heaviest lifting, expanding the world, raising the stakes, and deepening character relationships. Here the pacing is especially impressive. Action sequences are interspersed with quieter moments of vulnerability, reflection, or interpersonal conflict. These shifts never feel jarring because the emotional beats are rooted in the tension already present between the leads. The back-and-forth rhythm between chaos and calm keeps the film from becoming either exhausting or sluggish, sustaining viewer interest while gradually escalating both the physical and emotional stakes. Crucially, this middle section doesn't just rely on spectacle. It's where character development flourishes. The structure allows the audience to see Marshall and Ryder slowly evolve, not through abrupt changes but through a series of challenges that test their assumptions and force them to rely on each other. Supporting characters are also strategically introduced at this stage to push the narrative forward without overcrowding it. The third act delivers a satisfying payoff, both emotionally and in terms of action. The climax is intense but earned, tying together thematic threads and character arcs with high-stakes tension and a few surprising twists. The final showdown isn't just about defeating the villain. It's about the protagonists stepping fully into roles they resisted at the beginning. The resolution is brisk and clean, avoiding unnecessary drag while still offering emotional closure. In terms of tension building, the film paces reveals and complications effectively. Each major set piece feels purposeful, leading to a payoff or revelation that changes the trajectory of the plot. There's a deliberate rise and fall to the energy levels, with each peak designed to build on the last, rather than simply stack action for its own sake. Overall, Heads of State succeeds because its pacing is dynamic without being rushed, and its structure supports both spectacle and substance. By giving equal weight to character and conflict, the film maintains interest from start to finish, leaving the viewer both entertained and emotionally invested. Heads of State employs a classic three-act structure that supports its genre-blending ambitions, but its pacing and narrative rhythm are where the film both excels and occasionally falters. The story unfolds with a deliberate sense of momentum, designed to maintain audience engagement while juggling action, comedy, and character development. Narrative structure and progression. The film adheres to a well-defined structure. Act I establishes the central conflict and character dynamics efficiently. The inciting incident, the downing of Air Force One, occurs within the first 20 minutes, launching the protagonists into survival mode and setting the stakes. Act 2 is a globe-trotting sequence of escalating challenges, betrayals and revelations. This middle section is dense with set pieces and character interactions, including the Warsaw Safehouse ambush and the Croatia hacker den, which deepen the conspiracy while allowing for emotional and comedic interludes. Act 3 culminates in the Trieste summit siege, where narrative threads converge. The climax is both action-heavy and emotionally resonant, resolving character arcs and thematic tensions with clarity. Pacing and engagement. The film's pacing is largely effective. Early momentum is brisk, with minimal exposition and quick establishment of tone and stakes. Mid-film sequences occasionally risk fatigue due to rapid tonal shifts, from satire to suspense to slapstick, but are buoyed by strong performances and inventive staging. The final act is tightly constructed, with a satisfying escalation of tension and payoff. The chase through Trieste and the summit confrontation are particularly well-paced, balancing spectacle with emotional closure. Tension and stakes. Tension is built through a ticking clock structure as the protagonists race to reach the NATO summit. Layered betrayals, which keep the audience guessing and maintain narrative urgency. Strategic use of silence and stillness, such as Clarke's presumed death, which punctuate the action and allow emotional beats to land. Balance of action and character development. The film succeeds in integrating character growth into its pacing. Derringer's transformation from performative leader to principled statesman is paced alongside escalating threats, allowing his growth to feel earned. Clarke's emotional thaw is mirrored in the loosening of narrative rigidity, with more improvisational action and humor emerging as he evolves. Bisset's arc is interwoven with the plot's moral stakes, ensuring her development feels integral rather than ancillary. In summary, Heads of State maintains interest through a well-calibrated structure and mostly effective pacing. While the tonal shifts in the second act occasionally disrupt rhythm, the film's commitment to character-driven storytelling within a high-stakes framework ensures that both action and emotion are given room to breathe. The result is a narrative that entertains while offering moments of genuine reflection. Heads of State sits comfortably within the action comedy and buddy spy thriller genres, drawing comparisons to films like The Man from U.N.C.L.E. 2015, Central Intelligence 2016, 21 Jump Street 2012, and even Spy 2015. However, it manages to carve out its own identity by blending the political complexity of espionage thrillers with the comedic unpredictability of a mismatched duo, and doing so with a sharper edge and more emotional sincerity than many of its peers. In terms of structure and tone, it mirrors Central Intelligence, particularly in how it pairs a serious, trained operative, Idris Elba's Marshal, with an unlikely, less experienced partner, John Cena's Ryder. Like Central Intelligence did with Dwayne Johnson and Kevin Hart, Heads of State thrives on the comedic chemistry and physical contrast between its leads. But where Central Intelligence leans more into absurd comedy, Heads of State pushes further into genuine emotional territory, giving its protagonists fuller arcs and adding complexity to their relationship. Compared to The Man from U.N.C.L.E., which is sleek and stylish with a retro flair, Heads of State feels more grounded and modern in both its setting and its thematic concerns. It embraces current political anxieties, like surveillance, institutional failure, and global mistrust, without losing its comedic edge. It also favors a rawer visual style, eschewing gloss for a mix of gritty realism and fast-paced spectacle. From the director's perspective, Ilya Naishuller's earlier work in Nobody and Hardcore Henry showcased his love for stylized violence and immersive, propulsive storytelling. Heads of State continues that tradition but adds more narrative and emotional substance. While Hardcore Henry was a bold experiment in first-person action and Nobody married brutal choreography with deadpan humor, Heads of State represents Naishuller's most balanced film to date, combining slick set pieces with a more traditional character-driven arc. It's a sign of his growth as a filmmaker capable of handling ensemble dynamics and emotional nuance alongside his trademark flair for action. What truly makes Heads of State unique is its refusal to fully surrender to parody or pure escapism. Unlike many action comedies that play it safe with caricatures and predictable gags, this film gives its leads genuine emotional challenges. The comedy emerges not just from punchlines but from personality clashes, growth, and situational irony. At the same time, it doesn't shy away from offering timely commentary on the nature of leadership, surveillance culture, and the absurdity of global politics, placing it a notch above typical genre entries in terms of thematic ambition. In summary, Heads of State fits well within the tradition of action comedy buddy films but distinguishes itself through deeper character work, a more grounded aesthetic, and a director who brings both technical precision and a growing emotional maturity to the genre. It's a film that feels familiar in structure, yet fresh in execution. Heads of State finds itself in distinguished yet familiar territory, drawing inspiration from classic buddy action films and political thrillers while carving out a unique identity through its satirical framing and thematic ambition. Comparisons with works like Lethal Weapon, Air Force One, and White House Down are inevitable given the film's premise of high-ranking political figures thrown into life-threatening chaos. However, where those films often lean heavily into melodrama or straight-laced patriotism, Heads of State distinguishes itself through its self-awareness and irony. It embraces the absurdity of its setup, a former action star president and a rigid British Prime Minister forced into a global conspiracy, without undermining their emotional arcs or the gravity of the stakes. The film's comedic energy and narrative structure also align it with more modern genre experiments such as Central Intelligence and Spy, which prioritize character chemistry and subvert traditional espionage tropes. Yet Heads of State diverges through its commitment to layered character development. It doesn't treat its protagonists as caricatures but as evolving individuals shaped by ideology, trauma, and public scrutiny. The political satire is sharper than in most peers, echoing the tonal sensibilities of films like The Interview or even In the Loop, though Heads of State opts for broader, blockbuster-scale execution. From a directorial perspective, Ilya Naishuller steps into new territory while carrying over the kinetic energy from his work in Hardcore Henry and Nobody. However, unlike those tightly constructed action vehicles, this film stretches into more narratively ambitious terrain, integrating emotional beats and socio-political commentary. This evolution places Heads of State not just as a continuation of Naishuller's visual storytelling, but as a deliberate pivot toward more mainstream, thematically layered filmmaking. What ultimately sets Heads of State apart is its genre fluidity and tonal confidence. It doesn't rely on novelty alone, placing world leaders in a buddy cop dynamic, but uses that setup as a lens to examine the illusion of control, the vulnerability behind public image, and the enduring human capacity for trust and transformation. Within the ever-growing canon of political action comedy hybrids, it may not rewrite the playbook, but it certainly scribbles something bold and memorable in the margins. And that wraps up our deep dive into Heads of State, a film that delivers big laughs, explosive action, and a surprising amount of heart. Whether you were drawn in by the star power of Idris Elba and John Cena, or stayed for the clever twists and rich character dynamics, this movie definitely brings something unique to the table in the action comedy genre. But now we want to hear from you. What did you think of Heads of State? Did the chemistry between the leads work for you? Were there any standout scenes or themes that resonated? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing your take and sparking conversations around film. If you enjoyed this review, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel for more in-depth breakdowns, honest reviews, and behind-the-scenes insights. And hit that notification bell so you never miss a new video. Coming up next, we're diving into some other exciting releases, from high-stakes thrillers to indie surprises, so stay tuned. Until then, keep watching, stay curious, and we'll see you in the next review.